Hello BookTube, welcome back to another video. Today I want to do something not quite related to books, but somewhat related, and that is to briefly discuss what is the singularity. Because last week when I was talking about Invisible Planets by Hannu Rajaniemi, I kind of ended by saying, well, you know, if you know what the singularity is, then you have the background knowledge necessary to enjoy stories, and if you don't know what the singularity is, then maybe you don't. And I realized that was, in retrospect, maybe a bit gatekeepy, like you need to pass some kind of entrance exam, right, to be able to allow it or to be able to enjoy these stories. And I definitely don't want to give that impression. I do think, you know, Rajaniemi, in his stories, both in these ones and in his novels, does assume a level of background knowledge to get what he's talking about, to understand what he's talking about. And a kind of quick way of seeing whether you have all the knowledge he's assuming is if you know what the singularity is or not. So I thought, well, maybe therefore today it'd be nice if I briefly discuss what is then the singularity. Singularity is a term, it's quite popular amongst especially people who are into computer science and also into futurology, which is kind of the study of what the future will look like. And it first came about thanks to a Polish-American physicist called Stanislaw Ulam. And he reported on a discussion he was having with John von Neumann, a famous, I want to say Hungarian off the top of my head, computer scientist, one of the first computer scientists as we understand the term today, and mathematician also. Anyway, they were having this conversation, and Ulam says, one conversation centered on the ever-accelerating progress of technology and changes in the mode of human life, which gives the appearance of approaching some essential singularity in the history of the race, beyond which human affairs, as we know them, could not continue. So, that is where the term singularity comes from. And singularity is originally a term for mathematics, and that's why Ulam and von Neumann would have used the term. And what the singularity means is if you imagine, for example, the graph of the function y is 1 divided by x, and I'll try and put a picture here, hopefully that'll work. So you have on the horizontal axis, you have the x-axis, you have x running from left to right, and then the y-axis is the number you get if you divide 1 by x, right? So if x is very large, somewhere over here, and you divide 1 by a very large number, that's very small, right? 1 divided by 100, if you have one cake and you have to divide it over 100 people, not many, your piece of cake is going to be very small. Right, so you get a very small number, and as you get closer and closer to 0, the number gets larger and larger, right? If you only 2 of you, you each get half a cake, which is quite a lot of cake, unless you have a very small cake. Anyway, as you get closer and closer to 0, you get more and more, like if there's only a quarter of you, then you basically, you know, if you're quarter sized, you get 4 cakes worth of cake if you have 1 cake to divide. The analogy kind of breaks down when you are less than 1. But anyway, hopefully you get the idea that this gets larger and larger as you get closer and closer to 0, right? But kind of the tricky part mathematically comes, what if you actually get to 0? Right? 1 divided by 0 is not a thing. It's not mathematically defined. It's not. You can't do that in math. So what you see is as you get closer and closer to 0, the graph gets steeper and steeper and steeper until you going basically to infinity. So you have this point. So you can divide 1 by a very, very, very small number that is almost but not quite 0, and then you get a very large number out, so you're very high up. But exactly at the point where it's 0, things break down. The math stops making sense. And that is, in mathematical terms, a singularity, right? And you can have, so 1 divided by x is a simple function to demonstrate this, but you can have functions where more complex functions, where you potentially have multiple singularities. So they talk about a singularity. So that's where Ulam and von Neumann got this term from. So they basically kind of were looking at the rate of human progress and thought, well, if we put human progress, you know, on the with time running horizontally and the level of progress, however we define that vertically, then we kind of see this also as behavior where, then of course flipped, but we see something kind of gradually increasing and then going faster and faster and faster. And if you extrapolate where that ends up, then you also end up with a graph that's kind of going vertically upwards, going to infinity. So they said, well, it looks like there's this kind of singularity somewhere in the future where progress will advance so rapidly that we can't understand it anymore, and whatever comes afterwards can't be comprehended by us. And that is what futurologists refer to as the singularity. Some imagine a point in the future, and people argue about when it's going to be. A lot of people say somewhere in 2050, but they're basically just making up a number, at least in my view. But they say okay, some point in the future, especially if you look at how computer power is progressing, right? Singularity is this point in the future where progress and technological advancement is going to go so rapidly that we just can't fathom what's going to come after it. And more recently, this kind of been tied into the development of artificial intelligence, and especially of computing power, because that's been increasing quite rapidly, and computers double in power every 18 months or something. And that trend has been going on for a long time. So people say, well, if you extrapolate that, at some point in the future, we're going to have super powerful AI. And the AI will eventually become smart enough to invent even smarter AI, which will then invent even smarter AI, and that will kind of go faster and faster and faster. And we'll get this super intelligent AI that we just can't understand, and that will completely change everything. And some people say, well, humans and machines, the distinction will disappear. But whatever happens, we won't be able to understand. We can't fathom with our current state of mind what the world will look like after that point. Now, you can be skeptical about whether this thing will actually happen. I mean, they are extrapolating graphs, it's always dangerous. But anyway, it is a well-known concept. There are a lot of, especially people in the tech industry who believe very much that this will happen. I think Elon Musk is a big believer in this idea. It's one name, and there's various futurologists and computer scientists, especially amongst whom this idea is popular. And also in science fiction, it's a popular kind of trope to try and imagine, insofar as possible, the world after the singularity event. And Rajaniemi, in his science fiction writing, so in the science fiction stories in here, and also in his novel trilogy, very clearly has this post-singularity world, universe even, that he describes, right? So there's kind of the distinction between human and AI breaks down because computers become powerful enough that they can basically completely emulate being a brain. So it means you can take a human's consciousness and upload them onto a computer and basically run them as if they were software. So you can take a consciousness, you can put it on a supercomputer, but that also means you can transfer it to other things. Bodies become optional, right? You can just switch out bodies because you can upload and download your consciousness. You can back up your consciousness. You can make copies. You can edit those copies. And basically just treat your mind like a computer program. Also means you can make super cool robot bodies with all kinds of superpowers rather than just boring old human bodies. So you get this post-humanism, post-human societies, and that is. Rajaniemi kind of explores a lot of the consequences of that. What are the consequences if you can copy minds? Who is the real one? Is there a real one? Does it still make sense, that concept? And he looks a lot in kind of, what, if human mind can be software, it means you can kind of store it as if it were data, and as if it were a computer program. But how you can store computer programs in all kinds of ways. Right? We now use various electronic and magnetic storages, but he also kind of explores the idea of being able to store computer programs inside someone's DNA, which in theory, from kind of mathematical standpoint, is possible, even if we don't have technology now to really do it. But you could definitely store things in DNA. Obviously, DNA is meant to store information, and then, yeah, if you have the right machinery, you could execute a program which is written in the form of DNA. So that is a lot of what Rajaniemi explores. So hopefully, if you weren't already familiar and you do read some of his writings, that will help you understand a bit better what he's on about. So I hope that this was informative, that was clear. If you have any questions, do feel free to leave them down below. Computer science and singularity is not my area of expertise, but hopefully I have at least some grounding that I can help answer any questions, or maybe I'll know a better place to start searching for the answers. And if there are any other questions about common science fiction topics or tropes that you'd like to know more about, maybe I can help with, because I do have a background in science, which doesn't necessarily mean everything, because science is very broad and I have a very narrow specialization. But yeah, if there's anything more that you'd like to see a similar video like this one, then do let me know down below. And thanks for watching. See you again soon.